Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports. When
it comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
I need to talk a little sports with you, Ags. David Nuño here with TexAgs Radio.
Welcome back to TexAgs Stacked. I'm Billy Liucci.
Olin Buchanan.
Make a mistake. We're not going anywhere. This is going to be a great program, and we're building it into a great program.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
Do you realize everybody knows who you are right now?
I stand by what we do and how we do it.
Schools are like, we're freaking Texas A&M, man. Like,
That's about as pretty a throw-catch combo as there is.
I saw the safety roll, the slot fade. I knew where I needed to put the ball.
You had no other option but one hand at that point.
Yeah, man, 50-50 ball, I got to come down with it.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
That's not a fake sound effect. That's just kind of how I've been walking the last, 36 hours, however long it's been. Welcome into TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. David Nuño, Olin Buchanan here on Monday, September 11th, 2023. And, buddy, people aren't happy, and they shouldn't be. And yesterday on the Luchador podcast, I brought up the fact that you can't go on the road and make the same mistakes that you've made the last couple of years where your program has been average in 1 year and horrendous the next year, and can't make those same kind of mistakes on the road against a team that has some talent. And all the analysis that we had going into that game was get out to an early lead, stop the run. Mm-hmm. They did both of those things, and it didn't matter because the mistakes were there and the defense was dreadful. Hey, Olin, good morning.
Hey. Yeah, it seems like A&M's problems are like the whack-a-mole. Once you address one and knock it out, another one pops up. So you're playing good run defense, which was a big problem last year. You're getting good quarterback play, which was a problem last year. So you knock those down, and here comes you can't tackle in the secondary, and you can't cover in the secondary, and you can't get a pass rush, which was already a problem, and you can't get a consistent pass rush. So I don't know. I don't know how how you fix that because it hasn't been fixed. I mean, the pass rush was an issue last year. Now, I never saw A&M having those kind of tackling issues in the secondary, and quite frankly, that strikes me as just not giving enough effort. Now, Jimbo Fisher might disagree with that, but 241 yards after catch. And some of those, it looked like the what I used to complain about before is like, hey, we're A&M. We made contact. You're supposed to stop running. Instead of saying, by God, I got to put you on the ground. It's like, okay, we made contact. Oh, what do you mean you're not going down just like that? I'm gonna keep running. You're gonna make me play?
I've been going back and forth with this dude on Twitter who's not a fan of my work, but he did bring up one good point. And I actually thought I think I said it in a way yesterday on the show. I asked the question, is it development or scheme? Because you can't have this many dudes on your defense and recruit at this level and yet be out of position, not tackle, not run the scheme correctly. What are you being coached on the defensive side to have these kind of issues show up? Look, are there still things very possible with this season? Yeah, they're possible. You got the quarterback. You do. I believe in Connor Wigman. I would like to believe more in the offensive line.
You'd like to. I thought Connor Wigman played I think if you can't believe in Connor Wigman after that game, you just either can't see or you don't want to. Because Connor was he perfect? No. Was he under pressure? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought considering the circumstances, I thought he played really well. And I thought A&M had a chance to pull it out in the fourth quarter because of Connor. And then, they had the interception where Nye slipped and fell down. But I thought Connor played really well. The offensive line was, let's call it erratic. And
their quarterback had plenty of time to throw and didn't have legs, right? He's not Connor with the shiftiness and the ability to get out, although he did run on a couple plays.
Well, we saw, though, he had one run where McKinley chased him out of the pocket, and he was running, and he still got run down by Shamar Stewart for a yard loss and a sack. So, no, he doesn't have great mobility.
But he had time.
Yes, he did.
He had time. So then, again, it goes back to two things. What we said, what we've always said, since before there was a TexAgs, football is won in the trenches. And if you don't win on the defensive line and on the offensive line, you're probably not winning the game. You can't lose both. And look, I will give them credit. They have certainly made some strides in the running game, stopping the run game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That was what Miami was supposed to, that was going to, and remember the talk about the secondary, that's an area that A&M could maybe expose them. Or on the Miami offensive line, the freshmen, I know he made a couple of mistakes. And yes, A&M had 2 sacks. But I feel like those were breakdown in plays, it wasn't a consistent, you didn't feel that Tyler Van Dyke felt the pressure at all. He felt at ease in the pocket. And what did they do when they saw a freshman out there at cornerback?
Went at him.
Let's pick on him.
Here's something I don't get about A&M. Okay, there's a lot of things about A&M defensively I don't get. I think they substitute too much. I think they run in guys too much. In the NFL, they're not going to be substituting a lot. You're going to substitute. Guys are going to get breaks, but it seems like almost a revolving door.
Yeah.
I want my best players out there significantly more than the others. I just do.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think Miami saw that freshman out there. Didn't they have a play where the play was stopped, or was it a penalty or something, and they just went right back at it? They saw the matchup they wanted and went after it. And Texas A&M just never seems to do that.
There's just showing some highlights there on the CW8 and on YouTube as well. Look, by the way, the offense in the first half, and Billy brought up this point, so I do agree with him, but the offense in the first half was not good. They did have the short side of the field a couple times, which kind of puts those numbers are a little bit not in context because
they didn't have to go far.
Right. But still, the offense wasn't very good. You give them credit for special teams plays, for getting the ball close and moving the sticks. Sure. The offense, though, and I will give Bobby Petrino this, they made some adjustments at the half.
Mm-hmm.
They got the ball out of Connor's hands quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And
they got field goals. Here, there's so many plays to be upset about, but from the offensive side, here's 2 plays that I can't get over. All right? A&M's up 7-0 and they're driving. Had a good drive, but they're looking at 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 6 at the 5 or 6 yard line.
Right.
Or 10-yard line or whatever. Evan Stewart had a remarkable game. His stats were great. But you have got to understand, I think this is what Jimbo Fisher wants his guys to understand when it talks about playing winning football. So he's crossing. He catches the ball 3 yards downfield. He needs 5 for the first down. And there's probably no one within, would you say, 5 yards of him?
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're converging. But what you do there is you don't play soft. You need a first down. And what you do is you take that ball and you cut up field and get those 2 yards and get your first down, and then you go score a touchdown. He dances. He tries to avoid somebody because he keeps going lateral instead of turning upfield, and he gets stopped for a 3-yard gain. A&M kicks a field goal. Then they're is the first time they have the ball in the second half. They get down to close to on the 1 yard line?
Yep.
And they got a 4th and 1, but they're going to go for it. And Trey Zoon jumps. You got to be more disciplined.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing? So there is, and you kick a field goal. Well, right there's a chance. You just gave away 8 points.
Well, OB, let's do this. Let's do 3 things we wanted to see on Friday revisited. And this is more of shame on me. Because some of the things that I wanted to see, I got. And it didn't matter. So here are the three things I wanted to see on Friday heading into the game. Stopping the run. I think they did a great job doing that.
Great job.
Okay. Establishing some kind of run. In the first half, I thought Amari Daniels looked good.
Yeah, they ran okay.
They abandoned it because they're
not going to run like they did last year, but they ran okay.
And sacks. Yeah, we got 2, but sacks really meant more pressure on TBD, and we didn't get that consistently. No. So 2 of the 3 you got. Do you remember what yours were?
I'd say 2.5. No, I don't. I know that, I was like everybody else, stop the run. I always say take care of the ball, and which they did not do. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm running interference for Connor, but you can't blame the quarterback when he's throwing to a guy who falls down. And then
what was up with that?
The falling. Yeah, because on the long touchdown pass, now Javon Thomas got faked out of his shoes, but he was trying to come back, and he fell.
That happened to another game too, right? I can't remember. There was another game last year or the year prior where there was some slipping happening. I can't remember which one it was, but it just happened.
So they didn't take it. They had the huge fumble by Amari Daniels. Of course, they weren't picking up the first down on 3rd and 1 anyway, but at least if you could have punted, right? So it's just, and I'm sure I put a pass rush, which it's A&M. Jimbo Fisher, I'm so tired over the last 2 years of him talking about self-inflicted wounds, shot herself. They've shot themselves in the foot so much they should be walking on their ankles. When does it stop, Coach? When does it stop?
Well,
the shooting of the foot.
And I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's the facts. Auburn becomes the biggest game of the year right now. I mean, it's the next game, but
it's not. But it's the next.
Well,
game
the next real game. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I don't. With all respect to Louisiana Monroe, which is not a lot of respect, I guess. I don't mean it that way. But Auburn.
The last time they were here, I think. Now it was like when Kyle Allen was quarterback. They never won.
Yeah. Well, but the Auburn game now becomes. It becomes the tipping point moment, right? Because if Auburn comes to here with a brand new coach and these same mistakes pop up.
This Auburn team that was extremely fortunate to win in Berkeley.
And this Auburn team that beat you last year, they shouldn't have beat you last year, right? But then you're like, oh, snap. We're stepping up a weight class because I think Arkansas is better than Auburn.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you got Bama,
right?
Who I have faith that Nick Saban's going to figure stuff out. I don't think they're going to be the team that a lot of people expected them to be. But then you've got the Bama, Tennessee. You've got to go take care of. You have no margin of error heading into the Bama game.
Yeah, I think first of all, you're going to have to find out which guys in the secondary want to tackle. Mm-hmm. They want to, because they didn't look like they wanted to. And you can, people can come down on me for saying that. And if you said it to Fisher, you don't know what you're talking about. But, okay, here's what I do know. I do know that they couldn't make tackles in the secondary, and or they didn't make tackles in the secondary. So every team that's going to play A&M is going to see that, and they're going to be thinking, can we do that? Can we run through the – and Auburn, they got this big tight end that's he's legit. A guy who transferred from, I think, Florida Atlantic. Fairborn, I think his name is. Man, he's a heck of a player, and he's going to be hard to tackle.
All right, if you want to be a part of the discussion this morning, you can text us. I see a bunch of your texts already. We'll get to that here momentarily. You can also call us up at 979-693-1150. It is The Guard, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Make sure you send in those texts. Let's go behind the glass and say hi to Nick Savage. Nick, good morning, buddy.
Good morning, y'all. Happy belated birthday, David, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. Hey, I said this on Luchador. Let me just say it out loud. My birthdays, since I've gotten to the College Station, have sucked. Because Colorado trip sucked.
Yeah.
I know they won.
They won,
but sucked. Last year birthday, App State. That sucked. I can't even say what I want to say. And then I enjoyed being in South Beach and Miami and all that stuff, and we had a nice dinner after the game, but the football put a damper on the B-Day activities.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Dave.
Oh, hey. We live a pretty charmed life. We honestly, it's a great life to cover a team that but I just want more. I expect more. I want more.
Well, good, because A&M should. It's this enough tolerating mediocrity.
Yep.
Tolerance of mediocrity.
All right, Nick. Anything else, buddy? I'm sorry. You said happy birthday.
And maybe that's what the ATM should start again. Tolerating mediocrity.
Nick, talk to me, buddy.
Well, the one takeaway I had is just, first game, the offense is airing it out and throwing deep balls, and I feel like we didn't get as much of that on Saturday. So hopefully they can return to that against, Louisiana Monroe and maybe going forward, because it seemed like they were pretty. Again, I get it, it's New Mexico, but it seems like they were pretty successful throwing that deep ball and didn't really do it against Miami. So maybe turn back to that. I don't know.
I don't think they felt like they could protect Connor long enough to throw deep.
Yeah, two things. I'm shocked and kind of appalled that Miami looked like the more athletic, physical team. I don't think that should be the case. I don't think it should be the case. And also, I have two things on two different edges. It's a long season, right? Like, there's a lot of good that can come from this season. There's a lot. But then I guess the bad part of it is, how fixable is the secondary? How fixable is the tackling?
Well, tackling, to me, should be easily fixable, because then you just if you don't tackle, you're not going to play.
Right. But why are they missing tackle? Is it because they're out of space? Are they getting beat?
Well, sometimes it was that, and sometimes it just was effort, it appeared to me.
Right.
Or maybe it was just better effort from the Miami players. Better effort.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. The News and Social Center brought to you by the Angry Elephant. Like your politics, love your bar, find an Angry Elephant near you. Bryan, College Station, Magnolia, San Antonio. All right, Jared Schultz is there. Jared, good morning, buddy.
Good morning. I'm trying to keep my spirits high today.
Good.
Saturday was a little bit rough, but we're moving towards the right direction now, hopefully.
And why do you say that? Well,
I'm just trying to remain optimistic. I don't know. But
you know what, though? Look, I'm sorry I cut you off there. Why I'm optimistic is because of 15. I believe in them. Like that, there's if you've got the quarterback, a lot is possible.
Yeah, it's
a
true.
lot.
That's true.
USC had a terrible defense. You've got the quarterback. Now you got to protect him. Please protect him. Please protect our dude. But I was watching his demeanor on the sidelines. I was like that. Everything that Lady Robinson said about him was straight up truth.
I'm agreeing with you 100% on Connor Wickman.
Yep.
But that defense has got to come. DJ Durkin, so far, I think, has been a miserable disappointment as a defensive coordinator.
Jared?
I was just going to say, I feel like it seemed like it was hard for Connor to get the ball out sometimes. The offensive line kind of broke down a little bit. But beyond that, I do have some mostly good news for y'all. Aggie volleyball is now 7-1. They won against Utah State and Northern Iowa over the weekend. They did drop their game to TCU 3-1, but they're going to open up conference play next week against Mississippi State, and then they also play ranked Houston on Wednesday. So I have some positive news here.
That is positive. Hey, I'm not going to be mopey for the next 10 weeks because of a game against Miami, a Miami team that I think is on the rise, right? I'm mopey about the defensive performance, no doubt about it.
I hope nobody is mopey. I think the emotion should be disgust, anger, and demand for it to be fixed. And it's not. I'm not putting it on the players so much again, but your coach has got to motivate these guys. They've got to put them in better situations. They've got to have them better prepared.
Let's try to get one text in if you don't mind, Jared. Send us one before we hit a break.
Okay. Question for Olin. It says, can you please ask Jimbo something along the lines of like the following at today's press conference? The team isn't executing at all. We all see that. What are you going to do to change that?
I probably won't say this team isn't executing at all. There were times they executed. But I do think I might ask him some questions that deal with the defensive side of the ball more than the offensive side.
Yeah. Let's hit a break. We'll come back. OB, when we come back, by the way, DeMontre Moore is going to join us at 8:35 to give us his observations. Let's go through the turning point. I'm sure you've got one. I got two that could be there's actually several that it could be, but I think I pinpoint what I think was the turning point in the game.
I think the major turning point.
Hold it.
Oh, okay. We got to go to our
it's called a
commercial.
tease. Yeah. But I like the way you did it. Like you
Yeah.
started saying it, and people are like, tell me more. And they're like, I got to stay for the next one. Look, there's only one way
to feel better.
Well, there's a couple ways.
Okay.
I had a really good birthday meal last night. It was fantastic. Wifey cooked. It was great. Made me etouffee, and I love etouffee. All right. The other way to feel better about life is by getting some meat in your belly.
Yeah, in my belly. You know what? When I'm feeling disgusted and upset, I need some comfort food.
Yep.
Nothing. Unfortunately, I'd have to wait till Tuesday, but nothing would comfort me more than some rib tips from Fargo's. That's so comfortable. I could just get a whole bunch of them and sleep in them.
True story. And tell the audience if I'm telling the truth. I had some of the world's worst macaroni at Hard Rock Stadium.
Yeah, it looked heinous. I wouldn't even try it.
I was starving, and they had a burger made in 1986 and macaroni made before that because it looked old. I was like, I got to try it. Like, it's macaroni. I'm team macaroni. Like, I'd wear the jersey if they had a jersey, like, your soccer team. I'd wear a macaroni jersey. I would.
Yeah.
I tried it, and I was just thinking, buddy, this makes me appreciate the greatness that is Fargo's even more. I know that seems like not a true story, but I told you when we were there.
Yeah, like you wouldn't see that on Thursdays.
It's fresh, new cheese.
Yeah.
Who has old cheese?
Miami.
Yeah, fair enough.
But like if I needed to get over disappointment of the weekend, I would go to Fargo's on Tuesday. I would get some rib tips. If I got there a little bit later, I'd get some of that succulent smoked brisket, maybe some sausage, a big old glass of lemonade.
That cool, refreshing drink.
Yeah, and just start feeling better about life.
This is what we call a 12-minute spot. It is Fargo, 1701 South Texas Avenue in Bryan, without a doubt. The what?
The best barbecue in Texas, which makes it the best barbecue in the world.
That's their trademark because
that's true.
It's Fargo's.
I thought, offense, we moved the ball. I thought the quarterback played pretty well in the game. They had some pressure and brought some heat on him, and he stood in there and fought and did a really good job. We ran the ball when we got it. We didn't have to keep throwing it at the end. Special teams they got a block punt, got a critical turnover, set up points, but we gave up one, and that we had a missed field goal. And, just too many didn't find the plays at the right time, and give them credit, and we got to fix those things and move on.
Yeah, fix them, please. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. In the Rollo Insurance Studio, Jason Rollo was actually at the game in Miami. Sent me a picture from there. The difference is real. They are the official insurance provider of TexAgs Radio. Headquarters on Highway 6 right here in College Station. Call 888-44-ROLLO or go to rolloinsurance.com. It is the Go Hour presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. For some reason, the banners have become a talking point on the show. Well, I've made it a talking point, but the listeners and the viewers and people have commented. Do you know about the banners, Jared? You know about the whole story?
The bear banners?
No, the banners.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all right. So you know that we have a brilliant crew in the back that sent it without a name.
I wasn't a part of this crew, actually.
Yeah, I know. You weren't. I mean, I would have guessed it was you, but it wasn't. They sent it without I'm just kidding. They sent it without a name, and it wasn't their fault. But I didn't have it the day we did the show.
Right.
On Friday morning.
Well, they show up Saturday night?
Saturday night it showed up.
After the game.
The banner showed up Saturday night. And then they couldn't find it because it didn't have a name on it. And I was like, I've got the tracking number. It says it was delivered here. Well, we don't see it, sir. Can you look other places, please? Finally, they found it. Well, guess what? The banner didn't make it to TexAgs either.
I know.
Because we didn't have time to take it to the post office. And so we put it on the flight with us. And what happened when we got to Houston, OB?
They didn't have it. They said we got to Houston like noon. They said, well, it's not going to get here until 5. And I said, yeah, we live 2 hours away from here.
And then they called me this morning. Hey, your banners are here. And I'm like, great. And she's like waiting for me to say what time I'm going to come. I'm like, aren't you guys delivering it? Oh, yeah, I guess we can do that. That's what you said yesterday.
Yeah, customer service for some certain companies just is lacking.
OB, what was the turning point in the game, in your opinion?
I think I'll say the kickoff return for a touchdown from Miami. A&M had just gone down and scored the field goal instead of taking the lead. But now it's 21-20, and you're thinking, all right, maybe that was a pretty impressive opening drive, go get a stop, and then take over this game. And Miami returns the ensuing kickoff for a touchdown. And it seems like from that moment, it seemed like A&M was always, like that guy or that woman on the old State Farm commercial.
Yeah.
You got to be quicker than that. Reaching for that $1 and couldn't get it. Like that.
Do you remember what that touchdown made the score?
I think it made it 28-20.
28-20. I have a couple different ones that I think are the turning point.
All right.
Because it was just the vibe I got. That's a great one, by the way. I think missing the field goal at the end of the half and not scoring a touchdown or getting a first down and eating the clock, right, and potentially between a 14-point swing or a 10-point swing, the fact that you weren't able to convert points there and eat up the clock, which you should have, right? Mm-hmm. And Miami's able to go in, 3 plays, whatever it was, 4 plays.
All I know is they went down the field and scored in 40 seconds.
Right. And take the lead into the half, a game where I think you were gifted not only points, but penalties that really went in your favor to extend drives, to give you great field position. And you were down at the half after that. Yeah. That, to me, was the turning point. I'm going to give you the other one. Score is 31-26, okay? And you got a chance to take the lead still in this game. I believe is it the fourth quarter? I believe it was. No, excuse me, it was towards the end of the third quarter. And Amari Daniels has a chance to get a first down. And he bounces out and he fumbles the ball. And Miami gets it close to their to the red zone. And they're able to score on a couple of plays later and take a 38-26 lead. That, to me, wasn't the only difference in the game. There were several differences. Mm-hmm. But you had a chance on that drive to take the lead. And then Miami extends it to 38-26.
Yeah, it was. There were so many times that A&M shot themselves in the foot. The old foot shooters.
It's got to hurt after a while, right?
Like I said, they ought to be walking on their ankles.
Or get yourself, I don't know, Wheelchair.
They're going to look like a pirate with a peg leg so many times they've shot themselves in the foot.
When we come back, we might overreact a little bit because it is Overreaction Monday. Plus, because people are overreacting about, as they should, by the way, about the thing that happened in Tuscaloosa. But plus, DeMontre Moore with his observations of the game.
I'm going to look forward to hearing that.
Yep. Right now, if your knee pain's getting worse, not because you've been holding on to the Aggies so long and your knee is just too much weight. How about pain in your shoulders or your hip or your back? Don't let them tell you that steroids and surgery are your only option. Take my advice and call QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics can make that pain go away. Yay. We don't want pain, right? They've got an all-natural advanced regenerative medicine treatment that are helping people every day restore and repair that damaged joint tissue. So you want to feel like you're young again? That's who you need to call. That is QC Kinetics to make your body feel great. Regenerative medicine uses concentrated healing agents from your own body that stimulate that damaged tissue in your joints so they can work like they're supposed to. The best part of it all, no downtime. You go in, and you leave, and you feel good. QC Kinetics, the nation's leader in this exciting medical breakthrough. Patients here are getting real, lasting relief and are saying no to drugs and surgery. If you've got pain due to injury or arthritis, there's a remarkable option that you need to check out, and the consultation is absolutely free. 979-452-6000, QC Kinetics. 979-452-6000. That's 979-452-6000. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It is the Go Hour presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. I want to read this text that came in. Let's see if I can find it. It's where'd it go? I was going to let you do it, Jared, but it came up to me. It was basically saying, oh, here it is. JB in Canyon says, aptly named the Angry Elephant Social Center. Haha. It's so true. Today, it is about being angry. So you can text that line, 979-693.
I can't throw this stat out real fast before we go any further, before we get to Bontre. Look, 241
Yak.
Miami had 374 total yards passing in that game. Yeah. Okay? Subtract 241, and that comes out to 100 and something anyway. So with 21 completions, I divided that number by 21, and it comes out to 6.3 yards of completion. So are we saying that they're averaging a 6-yard throw? Average was a 6-yard throw, and then what are they averaging? That's 241 yards on 20. They're averaging over 10 yards a catch after catching the average. So anyway, that's just to make you feel worse about the tackling in the secondary.
All right, I know our guy DeMontre Moore's got some hot sports takes, and DeMontre is joining us now on the program. What's up, D? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks and giggling. Appreciate y'all for having me again. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah. Hey, DeMontre, we got to get into the real news of Aggie football, but can you tell the people what's going on in your world? Because 2 weeks ago when you came on the show, you were going one direction, and now you're playing again.
Yeah. So I actually recently signed to Montreal Alouettes in the CFL, so continuing my football career. Excellent. It's been a blessing. So I'm out here. You can see the beautiful skyline behind me. And so, yeah, we're just living the dream, man. Playing the child's game for King's Ransom.
There you go, man. All right, let's talk about I don't even know. I was trying to find a segue with Ransom and A&M and football not working out. So just give me. I know you're working on some observations for us. What's your first observation of what you saw this weekend?
First observation, I would say, if you wanted a good segue, you could say we were held at ransom as far as the attention to details. I don't like to be too harsh on my Aggies, but let's call it what it is. It was sloppy play and it was sloppy football this past weekend. But even though this is about to sound like a bashing session, we always look at what we can do to do better. As sloppy as football that was played, it also makes me very optimistic about the future. For the quality of football that we played, we were still in a dogfight and it was tooth and nail. And so for us to be shooting ourselves in the foot, as long as we can eliminate those key details amongst ourselves and actually pull together and eliminate the mistakes, we should have won this game by a good margin, I would say.
All right, so let's get into some of these mistakes that are popping up. The tackling, I'm sure it was one of your observations.
Yes, sir. The tackling was definitely one of the things. You can't go in there arm tackling and throwing shoulders and bows and stuff like that. You got to get there and have that fundamental, which I expected some of this. It's early in the season. We're just not getting started. Obviously, you have training camp, but live bullets are flying. We're not going to make excuses and say, hey, that this is okay, because it's not. We hold ourselves to a different standard, and we didn't see record-proof football. And so with that being said, I don't know what it is, if we got to go in there and do some extra tackling drills, or somebody got to get chewed out, or if somebody just got to wake up one day and just look in the mirror and say, hey, man, I put my pants on one leg at a time just like the other guy, and enough is enough. If I was them, me being a fighting Texas Aggie, it's been the same thing year in and year out these last few years. We have the talent, we have the youth, we have all of these different things of why we should win, but we can't put it together. I would be frustrated. I'd be like, man, I'm tired of hearing it. I'm tired of hearing the media talking about it. I'm tired of seeing it on film when I go in there, because at the end of the day, it's only you and the coach when you're watching it. And at the end of the day, you have to do your job. It's 11 guys on the field, but if those 11 guys each handle their one-on-ones, then eventually it's all going to transform and come together. So for whatever reason that is, if you got to go in there and get you some extra tackling drills, eat you some Wheaties, but we got to put some rocks in our pockets and we got to start knocking things out around here.
DeMontre, I know you got some more observations for us, but let me just do a follow-up there. How much of it is scheme? or development? Because I'm watching these guys. They're not getting off the line. Like, the defensive pressure is not there. Is it the way they're attacking it? Is it the way they're being coached? Is it the guys aren't being developed? What are you seeing?
For me, once again, I'm very – I don't want to be too harsh on my coaches and saying that it's them or it's the players. It's everybody as a whole. Like, one person doesn't make the ship go, but it correlates from coaching to players. For me, I would like to say that I think that it might be a little more schematic because we can't really necessarily say that. I believe Connor was blitzed 33 times himself. How many times did we actually blitz? And the few times that we did blitz, there were some exotic blitzes. And sometimes we might need to go take a page out of these NFL playbooks from San Fran defense. Like, less is more. The most productive defense that I've been around, those San Fran defense, Seattle Seahawks defense, when those guys were hunting the Legion of Boom, they wasn't doing XYZ. They wasn't running a 3-4, 4-3, 5-2. They didn't have all these things in their arsenal. They had one thing and they did it extremely well and they moved on. So for us, we need to go maybe simplify the game plan, do some really simple basic blitz and some simple upfront and tell y'all to go hunt and let y'all use y'all talent to go do that, and don't overcomplicate it, because when you see a lot, you see a little. When you see a little, you see a lot. So let these men see a little so they can go out there and fire on all cylinders. And if they're going at high intensity and then, hey, it was the play calling, I would rather live with that versus going in with all these blitzes and you're saying, hey, I don't know, it makes me a little hesitant, so maybe I'm not firing off the ball. But typically, in my experience, when you're doing a lot and you see a lot and you have a lot on your brain and you're thinking, it's not allowing you to fire as fast as you can on those cylinders. So maybe simplify the game plan, maybe have a talk and actually go in there and ask your defense, what do y'all want to run? What do y'all feel comfortable in and what has been most productive? But we all got to get on the same page. The coach got to help the players and the players got to help the coaches. Sometimes even when the coaches aren't helping the players just got to go be players, because it's your job. You're on the field and you got to take ownership in that.
Demontre, you said something earlier that you are a little optimistic because you think that some of this is fixable. What parts?
All of it.
All of it is fixable. Okay.
All of it is fixable, from defense, schematic wise, to even the offense. We have our weapons there. You have Connor that's playing, that is making plays and ripping everybody up. You have the new coaches. So all that's going to come with time and experience. But the one thing that sucks for us is we don't have time. Our backs are up against the wall with all these high recruits that we got, and we put so much pressure on ourselves. So it needs to happen sooner rather than later for us. So schematics is fixable. That's just you going in there studying. Tackling is fixable. Go in there and do some extra drills and eventually just put your lunch pail on and look in the mirror and say, hey, it's time to go to work. And then energy. That is fixable. Energy can be your biggest X factor and help you eliminate a lot of these things. Somebody has to get over there and say, hey, take ownership to it. Bring that fire, bring that Aggie land, that 12th man energy, and let them know, like, you know what, we've been here before. I don't care what's going on. Line up and let's just get it going. So it's all fixable.
I know you got some offensive observations. What stood out? I think the Captain Obvious here, Connor's that guy.
Connor is our guy. Connor is definitely our guy. He's making plays and stuff. And then the coaching is there. It's just they've shown improvement, but we still have issues. And like I said, that's going to come with time, and with the new coaches and the youth, all that is really fixable. So I really love where the offense is going. I just need them to do it a little bit faster, if that makes sense.
And what about the offensive line? Anything jump out at you at the way Miami was able to put so much pressure on Connor?
The blitzing, 33 blitzes. Like, what can you say when you're dialing up blitzes and stuff like that? That puts you in the fire. And I think, honestly, that's going to set us up for play later on down the line. Like, we got their best, and who else is going to blitz us that many times in one game? And that's not even including the blitzes that he handed the ball off on the run and stuff like that. We're talking about 33 blitzes on the pass, I believe, is the stat that I seen. My brother, we were talking about it this morning. So with that being said, I think they're good, and I think they're all right, but you're just going to have to get in there and you're going to have to go study film. Nobody's going to let you sit back there and have an Eiffel Tower quarterback and let him carve him up like a Thanksgiving turkey. They're going to dial up blitzes. They're going to send all these other things. And it's your job as whoever the offensive line or the coordinator is to come in there and say, hey, let's be prepared for that and how we can pick this up schematically. If that's, before the running back leaks out, give them some chips in there to help those guys, some full slide motions, but we're going to have to switch up the look and we can't keep doing the same thing and being methodical with it.
DeMontre, any final thoughts before we got to hit a break?
I would say my last and final thoughts is, as much as we talk about offense and defense, let's not forget special teams as well. There's 3 phases to the game. And when it comes there, the moment that we all can play 3 phases to the game, that's when we can make it go together. And we're beating up on everybody else, but also with special teams, they did their thing. They made 2 big plays, but then you also had 1 big bust. You can't give up a kickoff return for a touchdown and a knockout dogfight. Every little thing matters. And so that's what I mean by saying, hey, it kind of sounds like a bashing moment right now, but even with all those things going, that is something that we did. That wasn't something that Miami did. Yes, we can't control the blitzing that they did, but everything else as far as schematic-wise and the way that we play and tackle, we can fix every one of those things. And for all those things to go wrong, the game was still in reach and it was still up to hand and it was still attainable. And so that's what I want everybody to go in here and say, yes, we're going to look, and it's going to sound sad, but also let's go ahead and say, hey, man, it's not as bad as we think it is. It's never as bad, and it's never as good. Let's just go in there. There's 3 sides to the story. Yours, mine, then the truth. I don't care who's right or who's wrong. I look at what you did to put yourself in that situation. And so now let's put ourselves in the situation. This game is behind us, and let's get rolling and look forward to next week.
DeMontre, I appreciate it, man. Enjoy Montreal. We'll talk to you soon, all right?
Yes, sir. Thanks, and giggle.
Giggle, man. DeMontre Moore there on the hotline. All right, OB, when we come back, let's you got some thoughts.
No, they could use DeMontre.
Yeah, they could.
They could use it bad.
Let's open it up, the hotline. If you want to call in, you can, 979-693-1150. You can text us on the text line. We'll get to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center, and we'll have some closing thoughts here on the Go Hour. Right now, let's talk about something good. I feel like the breaks have been about good things. The Charge Apparel is something that's really good. They're Aggie-owned. They're operated, and they're a purpose-driven apparel brand. They're veteran-owned and operated, donating 12% of their total sales to organizations that support U.S. veterans and mental health initiatives. There's 2 great Aggies. They met in the Parsons Mountaineer in the Corps of Cadets. In the Corps, you had Tucker with a member of E2 and Travis Squadron 2. And upon graduating, Tucker was commissioned to the U.S. Army and Travis commissioned to the Air Force. After separating from the military, they formed the Charge Apparel as a way to serve our country through veteran nonprofits that they support. 12% of those total sales, not just profits, are donated to veteran nonprofit partners with a focus on mental health initiatives. It's an ode to the 12th man, without a doubt. And the clothing is fantastic. Premier fabric, lightweight, slightly tailored fit through the chest and the arms, designed to make you look and feel your absolute best. It is a Charge Apparel. Find them at thechargeapparel.com or find them on Instagram, The Charge Apparel, or on Twitter, The Charge Brand. It is TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. I'm going to read this tweet that I saw. It's, I think, a loyal listener, Chance Bitters on Twitter. Texas A&M after a Week 2 loss. This is under the Jimbo era. Mm-hmm. 2018, they lost to Clemson, finished 9-4. 2019, Clemson lost. They finished 8-5. 2020, Alabama lost, finished 9-1. Last year, App State lost, finished 5-7. He says, too early to throw in the towel. This could go a number of ways.
Well, no, I agree. It's too early to throw in the towel. It is, but and they're going to win this week, right? And they, quite frankly, they're a better football team than Auburn, and they have more talent than Auburn, Arkansas, and so on forth. But again, I thought this is a team. This is a area, a school, everything that expects to contend for national championships.
Yep.
Well, you're at a point now. I'm not saying that I thought they were going to win the national championship, but you're at a point now where, well, one more loss and you're out of that discussion.
Right.
And you could be out of that discussion before you get to October.
Yeah. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Jared's got a couple of texts for us, and I know we have a caller we need to get to as well.
Yeah, we got a text from Chase in Houston just saying the biggest glaring issue right now with the program is that fans are highlighting is that the O-line and defensive scheme is the focal point of negativity. He asks, how is that still an issue with this much talent?
You know what? Look, I don't care about talent anymore, the word talent. Yeah. Like, I mean, I care, but I don't care because you're not even Ole Miss or Mississippi State right now. Like, based on the last couple of years. You're not. So, and they don't have the talent yet. So I just want good football, whatever that means. I love the guys that they have. Like, I've gotten to know some of them coming in. The dudes are dudes. But I don't care if you're a 5-star or a 3-star. Give me some winning football. And can we get Anaya Smith involved at some point? That is something I want to see, some of the trickery that we expected to see from Bobby Petrino with Anaya in the backfield.
I want to see more Moose.
I would like to see more Moose as well. Let's go to the hotline. Jay wants to talk a little bit about some issues. We got about 2 minutes, buddy. What's going on?
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, how are you?
What's on your mind?
Oh, I think we lost him.
Already?
Yeah, we lost him. Oh, sorry, Jay. We'll go back to Jared there at the News and Social Center, the Angry Elephant News and Social Center.
Just Patrick had some more kind of thoughts. Miami pressured Connor all game. It made a difference. Cowboys created havoc all night last night. It made a difference. Like you said, same talent word. All the talent on the D-line, there's no excuse. It does seem like our D-line is super physical, super athletic, and there really should be no excuse to not get pressure on the quarterback.
Here's my honest take about it. You can't have that many studs with the stars by their name and none of them get to the quarterback unless it is a development scheme thing or teaching thing. You can't have that many.
It seems to me I see too much bull rushing from the ends. It's hard to just go through a tackle to get to the quarterback because you're further away.
Right.
You got to have DeMontre Moore was a speed rusher. Where's that speed rush?
Yeah. OB, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of time with you this weekend. By the way, how was Versailles?
Oh, that was one of
your favorite parts, right?
I really enjoyed that experience.
Yeah.
I like Cuban food and I like Cuban people.
Yeah, we were doing some people watching, weren't we?
Well, yeah, we were. It was fun.
You had the sampler. There were some things that you didn't like that you sampled, and there was a lot of things.
Cuban bread, just bread, may be the
pan cubano.
That changed a lot. That changed my life. I want rib tips on Cuban. I want a Cuban bread rib tip sandwich.
We can take
me into a new dimension.
We can open up a Fargos.
Fargaricos.
Fargarito. No, that's Italian, bro.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll come back with Tom Hart and Billy Liucci. It's TexAgs Radio. Sorry, I took a little while there because Bronny was giving me some statistics, and then all I hear is Nick yelling in the background, "We're back! We're back!" It's TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It's a happy... No, it's not. It's a day.
Awesome.
Let's go to the hotline. Tom Hart's here. Tom, buddy, is it 2022 again? Wait. Is it 2021 again? I don't know what it is, but Saturday was not ideal. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. I'm just curious. What were the stats you came up with? What were you looking at back there while we were waiting? Anything that shed light on any positivity going forward?
Let me phrase it like this. I don't remember the exact number, but if you look at, I guess, A&M's last 15 games, some of the wins who it's come against, just doesn't look great. It's just been rough, man, because I thought they fixed a lot of their issues, Tom, and I still think that this season could be a good season, right? Miami might be better than we expected, and the defense maybe can learn how to tackle again. But, I thought you fixed the run and fixed the offense. You're going places. Well, the offense looks good. They stopped the run. Now they can't stop the pass. So it's one thing happens, then something else happens.
Is it 5 out of 7 losses to Power 5 opponents? Is that right? Last 7 games?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's probably one of those numbers you're looking at. I think what befuddles me from an outsider's perspective is we all know that there is talent there. I mean, I was just reading up last night. Maybe 6 of these guys in the D-line are going to be playing in the NFL, probably 5, maybe 6. How frustrating is that going to be when, you turn back in 3 years and go, man, this dude's an all-pro, and we couldn't get to the Miami quarterback. But going back and watching some of those plays, I thought it was more, and this is small sample size, I thought it was more about the secondary. I really did, because they have 7-man protection. Your corners have to be good enough to hold up, because quarterback's going to usually have a little bit of time. And all I saw was guys getting beat and safeties either being late or not being able to tackle when they did get there, which was that, late fourth quarter touchdown, not the last one. So I think that's concerning. And I agree with you. It could still be a great season, but at some point we have to look at what we have on the resume and start to see, well, maybe there are more holes that need to be fixed before those wins turn into wins down the road. And I got to be honest with you, and I would not pretend to know what the conversation is within the Aggie fan base, but one of the emerging storylines nationally will be, look at what Texas just did, right? And it's the comparison to what Sark accomplished on the road against Alabama, and they're back-to-back top 5 recruiting classes, and that competition and comparison will always be there. And whether that brings, I don't think, by the way, most coaches, especially guys like Jimbo Fisher, think of the word pressure from any external sources, but certainly should be felt in the fan base, right?
Yeah. No, look, man, we're at year 6. There's certain expectations that we have for this program, and when mistakes keep popping up and they're different ones, that's an issue. I will say this, and I have to find some optimism, and the optimism is 15. He got hit a lot, man. He did not have time to throw, yet he made some great throws. He had his first couple of turnovers. One of them was, definitely not his fault. Anias falls. The other one at the end of the game trying to make a play. But that guy, his second half numbers were phenomenal, and if you've got the quarterback, you can get far. Just got to make some little tweaks on that defense, more than a little.
Well, and here's my other question without having watched all 60 minutes of the game. How were the other receivers, right? I mean, one guy pulls in 11 catches and is reliable and dependable. We know that there's talent in the wide receiver core. How come it wasn't spread out a little bit? How come other guys didn't come up with big catches?
Well, the big catches is because Miami there wasn't time to throw down the field. That's the absolute truth. And that's how Noah Thomas was crushing them. It was short, right? But even though it was short, I was surprised that Anias Smith didn't have a bigger role. that Moose Muhammad didn't have a bigger role. The tight end, Jake Johnson, he had a nice game. Yeah, he had a really nice game, which we didn't really see much of it in the first game. But there were just dink and dunks because that's what Miami was doing, and the A&M offensive line was not protecting enough to give Connor the time to go downfield.
Not the only offensive line in the league that had a bad week. Alabama's was built up as, the best offensive line ever. Not really, but people thought they were really, really good, and they are huge. They have big size, but Texas exposed them as well. Listen, the other part of it from a 30,000-foot view is the SEC West has taken a massive beating over the last 2 weeks. They were never automatic wins, but the value of wins like Alabama over Texas would have been, or, A&M over Miami, Florida State, what they did 2 weeks ago against LSU. Like those were the types of wins that built your stature as a division and as a league, and gave you leeway in this sport in which it's not a true bracketed playoff. It's a committee that picks who gets in. You've got to win the court of public opinion and say, well, yeah, our best beat their best, and our second best beat their second best, and on down the line. It's put a lot of pressure on the league as a whole, and it's winnowed the national championship contenders here after just 2 weeks.
Tom, I'm going to take it even a step further. It's the SEC outside of Georgia, because even Kentucky didn't look great, right? There have been a lot of teams that are just and I know that good teams have games that are close at the half against inferior opponents. It's part of football. You got to play the 60 minutes. But nobody's really been that impressive. Like even Tennessee, they haven't been that impressive.
Yeah, I could say that there's room for improvement in a lot of these teams, but the rest of college football goes through the same growth process, right? I mean, week 1 to week 2, week 2 to week 3. And we're in an odd place where the national attention is focused in some non-traditional spots. I mean, obviously, Deion is hogging the spotlight, and credit to them for starting 2-0 and looking impressive doing so, playing a couple of different styles in terms of what they did offensively week 1 versus week 2. But it is a rare place to not be in that spotlight for the SEC as a whole. And Georgia's, they got South Carolina, and Spencer Rattler was magnificent this past weekend, by the way. I think he went 25 of 27. I mean, that's hard to do in a practice throwing against air. I mean, he was as good as he's been, and that's what I've said. Like, he's going to have to play well for Carolina to have a chance in some of these games, because their O-line isn't great either. But big picture, Georgia hasn't been tested and really won't be tested on paper, for a while. So, that will continue to be Kirby's challenge, is to keep his guys motivated week in and week out when they're 10, 12, 14-point favorites every week, even against conference opponents. So I agree with you. Now, but what I will say is that at some point the training wheels come off, and we know week 4, week 5, like, okay, who's legit, and have you gotten better, and have you worked out, have you sanded down the rough edges of what you're doing, and know who you can trust and who you can lean on. And that happens every season.
Tom, how worried should Bama be big picture? Is it that Texas is legit that good? Or are the issues that we all talked about, questionable O-line, Jalen Milroe, can he be that dude? Like, are all those things maybe more of the story?
Both. I mean, they both can be true, right? I mean, I think Texas can be really good. I think Quinn Ewers, I did not have much confidence in over the offseason. We were aware of all the stories and kind of recommitting to the game and losing weight and all that stuff. I knew what we heard before the Alamo Bowl and what I saw, and I didn't have much faith. So credit to him. But if he can be an elite quarterback because he's got the receivers, he can go a long way, and he can carry that team a long way. So yeah, I think I think Texas, especially with back-to-back top 5 recruiting classes, can be that team. Nick Saban has proven over the last handful of years, really since about 15, 16, when he evolved with his offense, that he's not going to sit back and just wait and continue to get his teeth kicked in. He will make changes. I mean, he changed quarterbacks in the middle of a national championship game. It was unheard of. And not only did they change quarterbacks, but they changed their entire offensive attack when they brought Tua in to win that game. So I think there's concern there, because I don't think there's elite quarterback play, and that offensive line didn't look good. And they've got to figure out either how best to use Jalen Milroe, if he's truly their best option, or if they need to change their identity. And if you change the quarterbacks that they have behind them, especially Buckner from Notre Dame, he's not as explosive. He doesn't have the run game that Milroe does. It's going to be more of a kind of a big picture, old school, manage the game, win these things 21-17 if you can. And I don't think, I mean, A&M saw it up close. I just don't think that's where college football is now. I mean, the offenses are so explosive that the ability to pick up not 4 yards on first down, the ability to pick up 5, 6, 7, 8 yards on first down, and then Miami ends up averaging 18 yards of completion. I mean, that really puts you on your heels if you can't get to the quarterback, and these teams are getting rid of the ball quickly enough where you can't get to the quarterback even if you are elite up front.
Again, another question to make me maybe feel a little better. Is it possible Miami's just a really good team this year, not the 5-17 that they were last year?
Yeah, it's possible because they've got a really good quarterback, and he's brought in good recruiting classes. Anything's possible, and we don't really know the value of these wins or the cost of these losses until we get later in the season. But I think when we're looking at it through our own colored lenses and we're being biased, we dismiss the losses as, we don't take enough credit for the wins sometimes, and it's hard to value because at the end of the season you go, yeah, well, when we played them, they were healthy, or now they had a couple guys transfer. It changes every week what these teams are and who's on the field for them. I mean, Miami had 2 defensive linemen hurt in that game. Now they got Bethune-Cookman coming up in a short week. It's not going to be a problem. But if I don't know the severity of those injuries, but if they're a different team going forward because of those injuries, it's hard to judge kind of where you are. That's why you have to do it within your own building and continually self-scout. Say, are we the best team we can be? Are we getting the most out of our talent? Both, are we putting them in the right position to succeed? And are they putting forth the effort and execution to be successful? And if the answer to either one of those is no, either we're not doing it right as a coaching staff or they're not executing as players, those have to be fixed because there's too much talent on this roster to suffer through, defensive lapses like that. That was no bueno.
Tom, let's talk Mississippi State, which I know you had that game. They could win the West, right? Look, they haven't played anybody of substance, right? I get all that. But that being said, they were a team that many had finishing last in the West, and they got a quarterback. They got a coach who believes in defense. Maybe Mississippi State?
Well, it's really interesting. We had this conversation pulling away from the game the other night. It reaffirmed what I believed about Mississippi State after seeing them in person and being around. I don't think Mississippi State can beat the elite teams. Right. I don't think there's enough talent in their secondary lockdown corners. I think they're probably a full step behind from a recruiting standpoint when it comes to talent. And that's understandable when they've been through what they've been through, but they can beat everybody else. On any given night, they can beat any other average team in the West. And it looks like there are more average teams than we thought. The other part of where State is they've got this quarterback who's put up more yards than almost anybody who's ever played in the SEC, yet they're using him now, especially Saturday night, as a guy just to turn around and hand it off. Fewest attempts for Rodgers in his career, both in the first half and for the game as a whole. I think they're going to evolve. I think that offense is going to get to a place where it's more balanced, and he's throwing it a lot more. Their run game is already pretty good, but take a little pressure off that. Let your quarterback cook, because they kind of had the reins on him Saturday night, which caused it to go to overtime. But yes, they can finish high in the division. I don't think they can win it because I just don't think that they have the talent as much as other teams in the division. Obviously, the Bamas, A&Ms, LSU's.
I already talked about them, but I'll bring them back. Kentucky is a team that's 2-0. They're winning games. I expected them to be probably the second best team in the East. They might still be that team, but they haven't looked like the team that I thought they should be. And maybe it's because, they were that team last year. You don't make that big of a jump this early in a season.
Well, and a lot of changes too, right? And it's no excuse because everybody is going through changes. The Arizona team, by the way, that faced Mississippi State started 11 players in this game that didn't start in the same game against State last year. Like, they have had a massive transition on the defensive side of the ball. But Kentucky brings Liam Cohen back. He hadn't been the OC there for a couple of years, had been back in the NFL. Devin Leary, the new quarterback, new running back, and Ray Davis, who came over from Vanderbilt. So I think we need to remember all of this and it's the new look college football. Like, we've got to get used to it. We've got to remember all of this as we judge teams. Is how many games does it take to find your rhythm? I'll swing it back to Spencer Rattler. Last year was his first time in a system that wasn't the air raid and really simple. It was complicated pro style, and he had a hard time just not only remembering the plays, but voicing the plays in the huddle. It took him a half season, if not more, to really get comfortable in what they were doing. So I think sometimes we take that for granted. Maybe, by the way, that's a good lesson for coaches in terms of being a little bit simpler on the front end as you adjust to having brand new rosters versus looking at a guy and going, oh, he's a junior, he's a senior, he's a grad transfer. We should be able to hit the ground running. I think that's an adaptation with brand new rosters that you're looking at. So I think Kentucky can get there. I think their offensive line is better. They didn't play great the other night. Their wide receivers are elite. Ray Davis gives them a dependable workhorse running back, and Leary's going to hit his stride and have some big games.
Tom, I know you don't have a chance to watch every college football game out there and every program. It can be difficult, but Sam Hartman, man, what a great fit he is for Notre Dame, right? Yeah, he really is. And once again, two totally different systems in what he's asked to do and what he can do. What he was running at Wake was one of a kind. The slow mesh concept and his responsibilities being more in the run game and then let it fly. By the way, two weeks. So this coming weekend, college football, kind of like catch your breath. There aren't a lot of elite games out there. I think Tennessee, Florida, a lot of question marks with both of the prime ESPN game. But then next week, is it Notre Dame's got a huge one. Is that Ohio State? I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So and by the way, when's the last time you could look at those two programs as they go into a game and say, wow, Notre Dame's much more established at the quarterback position and is more explosive at the quarterback position. I didn't include Hartman on my I didn't include him as like being this impactful in terms of quarterback transfers, but it's obvious that he is here early on. And by the way, in 2 weeks, that college football slate is absolutely loaded.
Tom, man, appreciate you as always. Talk to you soon.
They're great. I'm glad you made it back in one piece, bud.
Buddy, Miami was fun. I'll just say that. Other than the game, Miami was fun.
Yeah. Well, it's like Vegas. Everybody leaves Miami with a headache. So
I got one now.
For
Thanks, man. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Later. Tom Hart there on the hotline, SEC Network, ESPN. We'll hit a break. I think Billy will be joining us here shortly. Plus, we'll get to your text messages there at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. We'll even, if Billy's not here, we'll open up the phone lines too if you want to chit-chat. That number, 979-693-1150. Right now, I always say right now when I go into these spots. It is one of my what do you call it? It's one of my
trademarks,
go-tos, like right now.
Signature lines.
It's so you know that right now a spot is coming. And it's a great spot to go to, by the way. It's not only a live spot, but it's a spot that I like to go to for my veggies. That's called Milliken Reserve, a farm-to-table community in College Station. They got homes, they got trails, they got wide open spaces with a mission to build a healthy community around nature, treading lightly to the land. Milliken Reserve is creating a sanctuary for family, for nature, and for community. They connect families to nature and to each other with an extensive network of trails throughout a wooded landscape that includes walking and equestrian paths. You've got creeks, you've got ponds, you've got gathering areas. It is a place for families to cherish generation after generation. Milliken Reserve, committed to maintaining and restoring that natural habitat, which means all the native species find their homes there, right? In those preserved woods, those ponds, and those creeks. You've got the deer, you've got the songbirds, you've got the rabbits, you've got the turtles. I'm sure you got raccoons and a bunch of other stuff. But it's a cool place to go. And homeowners there at the Milliken Reserve sharing a legacy of conservation, which means generation after generation, you're coming back to that same pristine countryside place. Make sure you go out there and connect with your family. Jump rope, climb trees, hike, bike, canoe, kayaking, equestrian trails, evening yoga, the summer camps, the music festivals, the farmer market tours, you name it. Learn more at millikenreserve.com. Again, that website, millikenreserve.com.
we didn't tackle well. We had guys that we could have tackled, and we tackled poor in space. And that's one thing we did last week. And they had yards after catch, and we had some guys with arms around them, and we just didn't make the plays and get them on the ground. They did a really good job running with the football, and we didn't tackle well in space afterwards.
Tackling in space. Why was that an issue, Jimbo? They're addressing it. We will talk to him today at the press conference this afternoon. It's TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Billy Liucci is with us. Hello, Billy.
What's up, David? How was the rest of your birthday?
Actually, it was really nice.
Good.
I got to, my wife made me some shrimp etouffee, and we got to hang out with the kids, watch a little football. It was nice.
I didn't get to watch much football. I was
taking
set
calls.
To watch. Man, you do understand, but it's like you can't. It's so hard to write when you're getting a call every 20 seconds, and a lot of them are calls that you want to take, and it helps get you some, a better feel for both the temperature of everybody, also just kind of talking to people about the game that I, whose opinions I trust more than mine and more than most people. So you talk to those people that watch it, you can kind of get a cross section of opinions and takes and expert analysis and rageaholics or whatever you want. Or when you win, it's the they project out like the next 5 games as W. You deal with that every week, but it's part of it, and it's part of what goes into just trying to get the best feel I can for not only what did we see Saturday, but how does it translate moving forward. And then also, like I said, just the temperature of everybody, which after any loss, it's kind of important to gauge. After a loss like this one, that frustration and vitriol goes way up. But I think everybody also understands it's one game. And if they play like they did Saturday, they're going to lose a lot of football games this year. And there are parts of it that you can take out and go, okay, here's a reason why they might win games this year. Here's some reasons why they might outscore a lot of these SEC teams. Wigman, Stewart, Thomas didn't do a lot. He had a nice 4th touchdown of the year, though. I want to see more of Anaya Smith at running back, Moose Muhammad in the slot. I think the offense could be close. I'm still, concerned with that O-line. I think some of the issues we saw were just a calculated aggression from the Miami defensive coordinator. But I think he came, he brought numbers a lot that they kind of outnumbered Aggie blockers. In the pass game, I didn't think they did a very good job at all of picking up the blitz, particularly even the backs. Again, that's where I would go to maybe, hey, if Anais can do that, that's a huge asset that maybe you need. Because Connor took way too many hits. He was off his back foot way too much. And I understand why when you see the way people were coming at him. But I thought in the running game is where they really got a little bit manhandled at times. And especially on those short yardage ones. It wasn't – there were linebackers coming downhill. But I watched plays where A&M linemen were getting knocked 3 yards in the backfield by Miami linebackers. I watched plays where A&M blockers just had their head down firing off the ball and just whiffed and didn't touch anyone, practically fell down. There were some I watched pulling, guys pulling that couldn't get there in time to the point of attack because they were too slow to get there. And just some things that concern me up there. But I also think compared to some of what I saw last year, like if that was their bad out of this unit, I think last year's bad was worse.
Yeah,
I think they got to get a lot better up front, but it's not. I'm not hitting that panic button on that O-line improving yet because I do think there's enough there. And if they do improve, I don't think they have to be great. If they do improve, I think that's Connor, Evan, Noah, elite. Running game, it was all right Saturday. It was all right. But I think you need to get more. I liked Amari's toughness, but I think you want to get more Reuben as he progresses. You know, how many carries does he have? 1 or 2?
Yeah.
1 maybe.
I got it right here.
2, but
he had 5 attempts, 7 yards.
5 attempts, yeah. So I want to see more of him as we keep going, and I want to see. You know, Le'Veon Moss was banged up. I think he was. You know, he's got, I don't know if it's a hamstring deal, but he's got something. You know, that hopefully he'll be back pretty quickly because they need to keep pushing those guys to see who can really get the job done at a truly high level. I was encouraged with Amari, but offense, they can do it. Defense scares the hell out of me right now. It does. I mean, you said Miami look. I heard you a minute ago. You and Olin were talking. You said Miami looked like the faster, more athletic team. I would disagree as a team. I would agree defensively.
Yeah.
Like that their defensive players, their secondary looked more physically imposing. They looked fast. They certainly played faster. Aggie defense looked slow to me on Saturday. And I'm watching Texas play the other night. They looked fast. We know the SEC teams defensively are fast. The Aggies did not look fast to me on defense, and I don't know if that is a style of play thing. I don't know if that is that, you know, they've always been big at safety. Even under Elko, it was Leon and Damani, and now it's Damani. They don't have edge rushers, twitchy little edge guys, or, you know, pass rushing types. They do, but they're not playing very much. Silla and Eni White. So I thought they did a nice job against the run. They're going to be a good running team.
They did really well against the run.
Yeah.
I mean, they kept them under, what was it, 70s?
Yeah, they popped a couple, but not, I wouldn't call them long, but they popped a couple over the course of the game. Part of that, too, was, you know, wear and tear through 4 quarters, but I thought the Aggies did a terrific job. Miami never got the running game established. That's for damn sure, right?
Right.
No matter what you want to break down.
Real rushing yards, 72, 11, 80, like 90
There
real
weren't many
rushing
sacks.
yards.
Yeah, there weren't many sacks. I thought they did a really good job. But physicality and power up front is not the issue. I think the issue is clearly moving forward is how our team's going to be able to exploit this secondary, because you've got a really bad combination. It's something we worried about when we said, where is that pass rush going to come from? And if it doesn't, my next thing was I'm concerned about the cornerback position.
Right.
And I still am, now more so than ever. I'd like to see a healthy Tony Grimes and what he can do. I know he gave up the long touchdown and he got torched, but you got to continue to let Javon Thomas develop. We kind of saw that with Chappelle as a freshman.
We did.
But I think Chappelle has to play better. I think that whole secondary, no one in that room, they should have all, and I mean this, like, I know people say, well, no, you got to keep your head up. No, I think every one of them should have had their head down on that whole defense. And the whole team, really. It's a team thing, but they should have had their heads down and been really bitterly disappointed in how they played. Because it's not that you just got beat, but it's just, you know, so many missed tackles and just even if there's a guy on that defense that did really play well, they shouldn't go home and feel any bit good about it. Because I'd be a part of that group. You should be really concerned and say, like, you gave up they gave up 6 touchdowns. One was a kickoff return. You gave up 6 touchdowns. I'm torn on the Miami offense because I want to compare it moving forward to, like, hey, how's this we know that defense will get torched a lot, and they'll get run on as you try to compensate for the secondary, or as they start giving up big plays and teams are able. Where you're going to be able to run on A&M is when you're able to go tempo, because you're hitting big pass plays and your offense is running down the field, and you want all these 300-pound D linemen to run, chase, and then run 300 or 30 yards down the field, then run, chase again. That's where they're going to get caught if they're still bad in the secondary. So it's going to all of a sudden, as games go on, it's going to make the run defense look worse. I don't know where Miami fits on the spectrum of, you know, the offenses A&M's going to see this year, because on the surface you go, oh, whatever, Tyler Van Dyke's not that good. Well, 2 years ago he was great. and people thought he was going to be a first-round draft pick. Now they got Shannon Dawson. I was sitting there, and a bunch of former Miami players at halftime. I was walking through it was on the elevator with them, and I didn't talk to them. I heard them talking, and the one thing they said that stood out, and they said, yeah, because it's true. They said the one thing Cristobal was going to do is get that O-line right. And I think Hunter said he talked to Gino Torretta during the game. They played together in the NFL, and Torretta kind of said the same thing. And you watch them, and they were so much better on the offensive line than they were a year ago. This could be a good offensive football team that they played. It's not going to be the best they see this year, but it wouldn't shock me if it was one of the better ones.
Yep.
I think of Mississippi State and what they're doing right now, it's impressive. Ole Miss is always tough to defend. Tennessee's the one that scares me right now more than any when I'm looking at the schedule.
Well, especially the way. Let's hit a break here.
They got to make significant changes defensively, Nuño, and they got to go in the office today and be like, or yesterday, and be like, that ain't good enough. And I think you need to see wholesale changes on Saturday in terms of like reps and who's playing. You need to figure out who makes up your best formula on the back end, and also in terms of getting a little more pressure to the quarterback.
Chance McClain's company's Heritage Films, they make documentary films about, maybe Saturday would have been a bad day to have an eye in the sky, but let's just say you have a big event at your house and you want to have an eye in the sky and capture that great family event and tell it in a story, right? You can do that with Chance McClain. He does these documentaries about families. He does them about your uncle, your dad, your mom, somebody important in your life, your family business, your family ranch. They're family documentaries to be passed on to the next generation, right? To be watched with the grandkids together about the way you started your family empire, whatever it may be. Chance does that, and he does it better than anybody. These are Netflix-style documentaries with the music, the video, the pictures, the whole thing. It takes about 8 to 10 weeks, and he's very creative when he tells these stories. The guy has started radio stations, done Broadway musicals, has done movies. He's done it all. He's a first-class guy, and he does first-class work, and it takes about 8 to 10 weeks. He's got the Heritage Film as an option, and he's also got the Year Flicks, which are these shorter videos for kids, basically. They're like benchmark videos where you get to know your kid in a different way, and those are fantastic. We did it with my daughter, Annalise. The website is yourheritagefilm.com, yourheritagefilm.com. 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341.
Well, they were bringing press. They were bringing unblocked guys. They were bringing and more guys than you could block. If we had 5-man protection, they were bringing 6. If we had 6, they were bringing 7. They were full blitzing us, and we got some big plays off of it. I mean, that's the feast or famine of blitz. We had a nice wheel route to the back to 2 a couple times and hit some balls out there. They were full blitzing. Then we got the run going and got it controlled, and then we started picking up started going even more protection. But they still kept bringing extra guys. I mean, they can always bring one more than you could bring, and they brought pressure. But we hit plays, and they made a couple plays on it.
All right, Jimbo Fisher there. Everybody's mood, right? Like, everyone's mood is in the exact same place. It's just like more of the same. You fooled me once, you fooled me twice, and this is the third time. Hopefully it's not the third time we get fooled. There are reasons to think that things can be fixed, and there are certain things I'm like, I don't know how you fix it without major overhauls. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. I know Jared's got a couple of text messages for us to at least set the tone here this segment. Jared, you can take it away.
Yeah, we got a text from Chase in Houston once again saying that the SEC is Georgia and everyone else at this point. It's the first season where you can look at the conference and say maybe it's not as dominant as before.
Look, that's the facts. Like, it certainly seems early on this year. We knew that the West was going to be a little bit more open, but I have not been impressed by any play there in the West. Jared, let's get one more in.
And then one from Colin and Austin that I resonate with a little bit. It says, why are we always all right or improving? When are we going to have a season where we arrive? It just hasn't happened.
Agreed. Like, you got to question, like, so defensively, let's take first of all, the O-line has no excuse to not be good. And, and I think they can be good. And let me say something. I don't think they were good on Saturday. I thought the Miami D-line decisively won that battle.
Yep.
And it's the front 7 too. And I understand, like, sometimes you get numbers thrown at you, and that certainly happened in that game. But also, you had guys that just looked like slow to get there. Not like Miami, when they're bringing those linebackers downhill, they're coming right up the middle at a couple of instances just untouched or just grazed, or somebody can't get there in time to pick them up, and they just cross right across their face and get in the backfield. A&M was really bad. It felt like, I haven't studied the stats, that's what I'll typically do today, but short yardage wise, when they needed that yard, it was very difficult to come by. And I think part of that too is Amari needs to not bounce it out every time. Like, there are times you just put your head down and get up in there and get when you need a yard or two. But there was also a reason oftentimes why you needed to do that, and it's called not being able to see a hole because there wasn't one there. So I just think the O-line's at a better place than it was at this time a year ago. But I do think they need to really evaluate tape and visit who ain't getting it done.
Yeah. Billy, probably not a fun question, but I'm just going to ask it. If I would have told you, Truth Serum, when Jimbo got hired, that this is where we would be, would you have believed it?
No, I wouldn't have believed it. Certainly not after 2020 or even heading into 2020, because you could see where it was building to in terms of roster talent and the way they were recruiting, and just that first season, to go 9-4 and the way they played against Clemson and to build up. But I wouldn't have believed you in 2021, 2 seasons ago, because it wasn't just, people think it was just that they beat Bama. It wasn't just that. They beat Alabama, sure, and they beat an Alabama team that, did they play for? Yeah, they played for the national title that season. They lost to Georgia. They beat an elite Alabama team. This Alabama team, and we'll talk about Texas at some point during the show, that's not an elite Alabama team. That might be Nick Saban's worst Alabama team.
I don't know if they were elite last year either. They just had a QB.
They did, and that makes you very hard to beat in college football, and they still lost twice. I don't know if Bama – it'll be interesting to see, because if they can figure Milroe out, he can be a problem. They didn't run him a lot. Texas whipped Bama up front. A&M whipped Bama up front last year. Mm-hmm. They had Jahmyr Gibbs, who was sensational. He did a lot. He covered up, I think, a lot for an offensive line. The last 2 years, A&M gave Bama big-time problems, that offensive line. Texas gave them big-time problems last year. the Aggies and Longhorns aren't the only two teams to do it. Tennessee, Bryce Young and Jahmyr Gibbs covered up a lot last year. Burton's really good at receiver, but they've regressed a lot there. I'm going off on a tangent here, but where you wanted me to talk about was they beat Bama in 21. It wasn't just that game. Then they went, and it was a bad Missouri team, but they humiliated them. It wasn't even competitive. Right. It was like they could have run for 700 yards. Then the very next game, couple weeks later, they played a number 11 Auburn team with Bo Nix, and they came in here and they held Auburn to 3 points. They completely shut them down. They essentially ended the Gus Malzahn era for all intents and purposes, and the Aggies were up to number 10 in the country going up to Oxford, Mississippi. And you wish they'd have this offense now that they have now, and maybe things would have been different, but they dropped 2 essentially LSU final possession, another Ole Miss late in the fourth quarter. They dropped 2 games on the road, and it's been a real struggle and downhill since, if you think about it, because they dropped those last 2 games and then went 5-7. So you're really 5-9 in those 14, and now they're 1-1. You're 6-10 in your last 16 games. And of those 6, go break down what those 6 are. It's LSU and it's Arkansas. Then it's UMass. It's New Mexico. Who else? Who'd they start out with last year? It's UMass, New Mexico,
Sam Houston.
And there's it's not App State. They didn't beat it. Who was the other?
Last year, UMass, Sam Houston,
Miami, and App State. Yeah.
So
they have, man. It's what are they? 3-9 in their last 12 against Power 5. 3-9 in your last 12, and they're 0-7 on the road. 7 straight true road games you've lost. That's brutal, and they do it since 2021. And that one road win was a 10-7 win over like a 2-10 Colorado team. David, that's as bad. It's literally as bad as it can be away from Kyle Field. And I think that's one of the things that Jimbo and his staff need to look at very carefully and say, why is that? It's not because you're playing decidedly worse away from home than you are at Kyle Field. Decidedly worse. And there's got to be reasons for that go beyond just your personnel, because it's the same personnel at Kyle where they are a much better football team.
Where would this program be without the Alabama win? Don't answer that. I'm just saying it out loud. Like that's what you and the LSU win. I'm just saying the LSU win and the Alabama win shows you who you can be, yet too much of that.
I don't think it would have changed anything. I think those stand out as opportunities lost. Look, they don't have a choice right now. You've got Auburn coming in 2 weeks, and you've got an Arkansas team that you can beat. And then you set up Alabama coming in here. I said before they played Miami that 2 things I said. Miami scared me for this football team that early, and playing over there against that quarterback and that coordinator, both those that game, I thought A&M would win a close one.
Yep.
If you'd have told me you want to come back, I want to talk specifically.
Well, we have a round of Aggie Land coming up next, but
okay.
Do you want me to push that back?
I don't care. I mean, everybody knows what's happening around Aggie Land, but it's a sponsored spot. So yeah, I want to talk when we come back. I want to talk Miami and specifically what we saw in that game in terms of like how is that going to what do they have to fix in order to get out of September? Because to me, it wasn't so much about beating Miami as it was for everyone else's sanity and just the temperature and climate in that building and around the program. That's why this one was so important. But the bottom line to me was A&M needed to come out of these first 5 games at 4-1. And 5-0 would have been optimal. But you're sitting there going Miami, Auburn, dangerous, always tough against Arkansas, and then the Crimson Tide coming in. They needed to go 4-1. Obviously, Bama still looms.
Right.
They're still they're still as good as anyone in the SEC, and probably even a little better. That much though this time, besides Georgia. It's a lot harder to beat Alabama than it is Miami. Let's put it that way. But what's done is done. So we need to look at what happened and what does Texas A&M have to do in order to make it through the rest of this September gauntlet?
All right, let's talk about tailgating opportunities at Aggie Park. The first game of the season was a good success, and the next home game is going to be here on Saturday. If you're still looking for a great spot to tailgate before each game, let me tell you about the Association of Former Students, who is excited to announce their partnership with Revel XP to make available tailgating space in Aggie Park for the 2023 football season. The Aggie Spirit Lawn offers more than 60,000 square feet for tailgating, with packages starting as a few $100s for preset space, covering in chairs, catering, and other options as well. The lawn is situated in Aggie Park, steps away from Kyle Field and the Clayton W. Williams Jr. Alumni Center and the Moore Creamery. Not only is it close to all the action, but the park also provides amenities for all to enjoy, like walking, paths, restrooms, Wi-Fi, and much, much more. If you're interested in learning more about tailgating opportunities or ready to book a spot, visit tx.ag/Aggie Spirit Lawn. And we are back. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Time for Around Aggieland presented by Norman G. State Bank. Norman G. State Bank, rock solid banking. The website, normangstatebank.com. Kay Nagley, hello.
Awfully enthusiastic little introduction there, Nuño.
I don't know. I just You know, you can't. You can only be down about a football game for a year
or like
two.
48 hours.
Right.
It's not upstate, so that's all that matters. A year ago we were going through it. Anyways, I'm gonna skip over some football news because we all know what happened there. But moving on to some other fall sports, volleyball is currently playing, but they unfortunately dropped their match in the final game of the A&M Invitational on Sunday. They went 2-1 in that tournament though, but they did lose to TCU on the final day. They will continue their home stretch as they will face number 21 Houston at Reed Arena. That is a big matchup on Wednesday. Make sure to go and pack Reed to support Aggie volleyball. I know there's been a lot of supporters at Reed Arena. We got the chance to go the other day. It was quite fun. Soccer also did some damage. They beat the Rice Owls 4-0 on Sunday evening's match that was at Rice. The Aggies will return to Ellis Field for Friday's SEC opener against the Kentucky Wildcats. Make sure to go pack Ellis. That match time is set for 7 p.m. And then the number 3 Texas A&M women's golf team is set to compete at the prestigious Annika Intercollegiate at the Royal Golf Club. That is beginning today as well. So some other fall sports. Hopefully we'll get another win here at Kyle Field this weekend.
Ms. Kay Negley, thank you. We'll be back. And we are back. It is TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Hour number 3 of the program. Just found out Aaron Murray is going to be on Up to the Second College Football tomorrow. Just a different vibe when we do that show when the Aggies are winning and losing. It just kind of depends on, I guess it's just the vibe of this show in particular. We will get to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center here in a moment, but I do want to read Bigelow's thoughts on this. He says it's all about the scheme. It's the scheme, it's the scheme, it's the scheme. He's a high school coach in the Houston area, and absolutely, it is the scheme. And look, I'm actually taking a step further. I think scheme is part of it. I also think it's development and maybe the right pieces on the defensive line. The secondary, that's something I'm so worried about, because we looked at last year and they were good at stopping the pass, but were they really? Were they really good at stopping the pass? Because teams just ran on them and they didn't have to pass that much. So those numbers are a bit skewed. Let's go back to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Let's get some of these text messages in, Jared, as we wait for Billy.
Oh yeah, we got one from JB and Canyon asking if the offense looks like to you that it kind of reverted back to 22. I know Billy might have some thoughts on that later.
I thought the first half the offense looked like the offense from last year. Yes. There were some issues getting plays in. They were a little slower, some confusion. It wasn't. Do you remember when Seth was on the program? I think it was on Thursday of last week, right before we left for Miami. Stuff like, this is the game you're going to bring it all out. You're going to show it. And we didn't see that. And I'm sorry, it is coaching when you can't do things because of what the other team does to you. So they were putting all these guys in the box, making life hard for you. You couldn't block everybody. Well, then you need to do something that exposes them there. And they tried their best, with the quick passes and, get the ball out of Connor's hands. But that dude was being harassed a lot. Back to the offense. You've got to give credit to making adjustments. I saw the offensive adjustments. I didn't see the defensive adjustments. And that, to me, is part of why we are where we are right now, Jared.
Yeah, and we had one other one from Spencer in Denver, just saying that A&M's football program is kind of where Clemson was early in Dabo's tenure. Good recruiting, but just couldn't quite break through. But then they finally found a series of exceptional quarterbacks and things gelled. Is A&M kind of in the same place?
Look, that's what's going on here. I don't understand this situation. That's one of the things that I think, Jared, that is. Can we show? You want to have a mic? You want to join us in conversation? The text was from Spencer in Denver, basically saying that A&M is very similar to Clemson when they didn't have a quarterback, and now A&M does have a quarterback. And I will say that there's optimism in having a quarterback.
There's a lot of optimism, but you could also lose a lot of high-scoring games like you did the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Aggies gave up almost 50. And I know they gave up a special teams touch. The special team stuff, the muffed punt by Miami was a gift.
Yep.
Blocking a punt was a great special teams play by A&M. And I don't know why, but I was sitting there on the sideline. I was sitting there right in front of me, and I don't know why, but before that time, I said they're going to block a punt here. It's been a while since they've gone after one, and I had no. I just was talking out of my ass because I probably wanted to see it happen, but it'd been a while since I've seen them get real aggressive on it. It was well timed. That was a good special teams play. The kickoff return was a bad special team. So I thought on the play, there was a lane created by someone getting out of their lane, and I could be wrong. I was sitting in the end zone and saw it, and it looked like Miller got out of his lane there, but he also got blatantly held and tackled. So while I do think you just take that thing on head on a little bit, and it might bust it up, makes the return man have to make a move one way or the other, and then everybody converges on him. But he was tackled in the open, right in front of the return man. Usually that's almost every time that's going to get called for the way that block was made. But at the end of the day, that's fine. Let's just call it what it was. It was a kickoff return for a touchdown. it wasn't a backbreaker because A&M came close to recovering, but the Aggies had, there were 2 turns of events there that were just so frustrating, and that's why you look at that game, you go, they could have, I'm not saying they could have easily won, like A&M was just so much better than Miami, because unfortunately they weren't. But you play that team several times, A&M will win plenty of them. The way that game went, that point before halftime, you call it a 10-point swing. I say it's a 10 or a 14. Because you also say, well, if they could have just finished that drive off when they got down there near the red zone, or just gotten one more first down, then you have the opportunity to make it a 10 or 14-point swing. Either you score 3 or you score 7, but they score nothing. And they still shouldn't have scored anything in a minute to go down there like it was just nothing. They went down the field there in a minute, but right before the half was a killer, and then that it's chain of events there where Evan gets turned around and he doesn't really, he, for a guy that's so aware on the football field, he was unaware that just catch it, turn and get that first versus make a move that's kind of, there was so much space to pick up that first down. Was that the one that was a little behind them and it kind of turned, but you just kind of turn and dive for that first down at that point, get your head down and get, but anyway, not getting that. And then to line up and look, I'm not going to assume they would have got 1 yard on 3rd and 1, but on 4th and 1. But to false start there, I think it was Zune on that one, on 4th and 1, and have to kick a field goal. So you cost yourself 4 there, and then you cost yourself 4 and then give up a kickoff. I mean, what a swing that was to start, because they come out and they move right down the field to open the 3rd quarter. And it looked good. It looked on time.
Yeah.
Wegman was in a rhythm. The receivers knew what they were doing. The protection was holding up. And then, boom, it stalls inside the 10, have to settle for field goal, and then you give up a touchdown. So you started that half exactly how you wanted to, and by essentially the end of that drive, you were outscored 7-3. That was a killer as well. So much it could have gone right that went wrong for them. But at the end of the day, like we said, you gave up 48, and the Aggies didn't capitalize enough on offense, on chances, because they needed. That was a game where it was like, you need to score 50. Fine, then you need to go do it against Miami.
And the mistakes you made in this game were at terrible times, right?
Yeah.
The Amari fumble.
Yep.
That happens with a chance to take the lead in a game that you had given up the last little bit, right? The 2-point convert, all the things. There was the kickoff return. The timing on all these mistakes led to Miami capitalizing and not A&M.
Yeah, I didn't like that we had started to see the timeout thing come into play again very early in that game. They had to burn a couple. I didn't like, the mistakes. We mentioned some of them up front. But I think when I watch that game, I'm like, 2 things stand out to me. The defense, the back end is such a concern, because you just wonder if they can fix it. And I go, well, how in year 6 can they not? And if those guys, if there was that much concern, then man, I know they got guys in the portal, but maybe that was a place where you really needed to load up even more so than on the recruiting trail. And because, man, they need Javon Thomas to get better really quickly. And as a true freshman, it's understandable what happened out there, particularly on that play, but just in general, you're in game 2. It's your first game against a real team ever. I think they need Dalton Brooks to continue to progress rapidly, because he's such a gifted athlete at safety. I think, the question, you need a question like, where's Jacoby Matthews? He was such a highly regarded recruit. Like, you want to see more of him, and you saw a little of him out there. In fact, was it him on that long touchdown there at the end? But regardless, he's so talented, and I think you want to see more of him. These are high-end athlete guys, and that's what I felt like was lacking out there. And you asked why were they missing tackles? Well, a lot of that is you're just not getting there soon enough. You're not making plays in space. You're not, you're a step slow in getting there, whether it's reaction or whether it's technique. And I think that's the other thing they need to look at, like what's going on with the footwork and technique back there. Are they getting beat quickly? I don't know if they are or not, but there's a lot of things where you go, that secondary was a glaring liability. And the other thing that stood out to me, David, that I didn't like seeing is, like, I look at Miami and their jump from last year to this year was so significant.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get across the goal line last year against the Aggies. They lost 17-9. There was 3 field goals. They lost 17-9. Van Dyke looked like a shell of what he was advertised to be. They weren't imaginative on offense. They went and hired the guy from Michigan. They weren't imaginative. Kevin Steele wasn't getting it. Defensively, they were solid, but
they're better.
A&M kind of ran on them quite a bit. They're a lot better on defense. They're a lot more aggressive. They went in the portal and got better players. They're star guys like Kitchens, who ended up with that scary injury at the end. They've made huge leaps. And then offensively, under Shannon Dawson, they looked night and day in their approach. Here's the thing: Miami were the Hurricanes were the aggressors on both sides of the ball. They were the aggressors, and that they were aggressive on defense. And I thought Petrino did a really nice job of adjusting after halftime. But they were certainly the aggressor over there, and they were the aggressor offensively for sure. And I know they kind of took away that deep passing game. And I heard you guys saying, well, we want, I think it was Nick, we want to see more deep shots. Well, we all do.
They couldn't.
But they kind of said, you're not going to do this because they're going to sit those safeties back, and they were going to bring pressure. I did hear before the game, and kind of their thoughts were they thought that the A&M O-line couldn't handle their D-line. That was the pregame word on the street. They were going to attack the secondary, the A&M secondary, particularly like
that's smart.
That seam pass. Who I talked to said they're going to hit one of those. They're going to try to hit one of those early to the tight end up a seam. I forget who caught it, but they did run right at Damani on that first long play. And then offensively, when A&M had the ball, they thought they could bring a lot of pressure, and they were going to make A&M. They were going to make A&M try to run the ball, and didn't think they could. Mm-hmm. They didn't think they could go down the field and sustain drives, and they were partially right in that, because I know A&M scored 33, and some people will say, well, 14 of those were short field, and they were.
You get credit for it.
But yeah, over the course of a season, all that adds up. But they punched them both in. If you wanted to say that you gifted them 6 points because they gained 0 yards and had to kick a field goal, I always think of those as different. But they made them go down the field, and they made them throw it underneath that coverage. But up front, they were really aggressive and brought pressure. And then they tried to bail them out with those safeties, deep, and they took away the shots. How many shot plays did A&M have that were succeeded? 1 to Evan? I think Noah drew a PI on a deep ball.
His jersey got grabbed,
tackled, so those were about it as far as just real shot plays.
Yeah.
So what stood out to me is Miami's progress from year 1 to year 2 under Cristobal, and I've seen offensive progress by the Aggies from that Miami game last year. But what I saw Saturday looked like defensive regression. And I don't think that's going to be the case as the whole year plays out. But it will be if they don't figure out, like, they got 2 weeks, David, and maybe it's 3. I mean, maybe they can beat Auburn. They're not going to beat Auburn with that same game, but like the transition to kind of change who you are defensively, it might be 3 weeks between Miami and Arkansas. But by the time you get to that one, maybe the home crowd in this offense and so much being new at Auburn, a team that put up 14 up at Cal this weekend. I know Cal's got a good head coach. It's defensive-minded coach, but it's Cal. Go ahead. I just think you really have like 3 weeks. It's a dangerous game to play because Auburn can beat you. But you're at home. I think you have, by the time you go up to Dallas at Arkansas, you better have everything buttoned up. And there needs to be they need to be playing defense in a much different way. And I mean the approach, that Durkin takes into the game, but also in terms of like who's playing how much and where by the time they go to that one, because that's about the time A&M will either start to ascend or the wheels can come off. And it's at Arkansas, Alabama. Yeah, you throw Tennessee in there, I'm kind of separating that game for right now.
So I'm just comparing the 2 games. Last year, Miami rushed for 175 yards on A&M.
Yeah.
Okay, this year obviously significantly lower than that, 100 yards lower. Offensively, Tyler Van Dyke in that game threw 41 times. He was 21 of 41, 217 yards. This year against A&M, he threw only 30 times, but way more efficient. His QBR was 229 compared to 52 last year. Talk about offensive improvements. They did the passing game way better. A&M did a nice job on the run. But then you look at some of the receiving yards this year. Xavier Restrepo ate them alive. 126 yards. Young, 75 yards. George, 94 yards. They spread it out.
George did it really on the one play, which was the backbreaker.
64-yard touchdown.
I mean, it's crazy, and I'll give the Aggies credit and for they hung in. I would have never thought that they could have a third down play with a chance to get the ball back to go tie it. And with the way the offense was moving, they certainly could have gone down and tied that thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they had some rhythm going offensively, and they on those drives they started to struggle down there inside the 10. They turn over on downs. I think it was turnover on downs, touchdown, then an interception, or in whatever order that was. But they were moving it and stalling out in there. So if they'd have gotten the ball back one more time, I think Connor and those receivers would have made it pretty damn interesting, and I think they would have threatened to score to send that thing to OT. But again, it was too easy, and on third down with the game on the line, they're confident enough to drop back and chunk a deep ball down the sideline there, and then it really wouldn't have mattered if you tackled him at that point. But just the fact that you didn't was just kind of the exclamation point on what they did offensively. I mean, it's beyond frustrating. Did you see? You didn't see it because I haven't put it out yet. But A&M, you talk about week 2 games, and what are they? 5 out of 6 years they've lost week 2. How about this one? And it's such a. People get offended if you want. Like, it's such a buzzkill for the fan base, for I think the players, and that's where Jimbo has to play the role of, show them a lot of tape and say, look, this is all stuff you can fix, because there is a lot of that. But it's so deflating, and that was what worried me about if they were to lose that game, was the crowd, the fan base, even the players. That you put so much into that, and then you go out and you really don't look good, and you as of today, you're not the team you thought you were.
Yeah. They
can fix that. Starting today. But when they were flying home, I'm hopeful that was a very are we just going to do this?
This is not loud. It's been way louder than this.
Okay, it's pretty
breaking through. It's
pretty freaking ridiculous. I mean, you have to break through between 8 and 11. But anyway, those studios better be good. That's all I'm going to say. New studios next door. But they're not the team they thought they were. And then you have to fly home and realize that. But you can't get in this mode to forget that that doesn't have to be the team you are.
But you started
how you handle that loss and respond to it is going to determine this season, which is I do still believe it is the defining season of Jimbo's tenure in 6 years.
So, but you started that with saying something you haven't put out yet. Did you want to finish that thought?
Yeah, you talk about that second week, and we talk about road games for A&M. How about, since I've kind of either been in college or let's talk about non-conference road games. And I'll even include Florida State in New York to open up the Big 12 championship season. Loss.
98.
At Boulder, the big one in 95, loss. And they ended up winning one later in Boulder, but that wasn't non-conference. That was Big 12, actually. Boulder, Colorado, loss. 96 BYU, loss to Steve Sarkisian at quarterback there, and Lavelle Edwards. That was a preseason top 10 team, loss. Miami, so A&M's lost 3 of 4 now to Miami when Miami has stunk. Okay, they might be better than this year, but last year they were 5-7. Who's a head coach back in the day? Randy Shannon. They went 0-2 against Randy Shannon. Fran and Sherman, 0-2 against Randy Shannon. Some of the worst Miami. That's when the downfall was really getting going for them. I do think Cristobal, if there's anyone that can pull him out of it, it could be him, just with the recruiting and just the kind of mentality that he's going to instill in them. I was impressed with Miami, how hard they played, and they were physical. If they could, I just don't know if they can do that every week. If they can, they'll be a pretty good team. I just don't know if they can make that big a leap. I think there's still I think that's still a team that's going to get exploited on defense more than A&M did, even because A&M could have done more. We talk about the red zone. God, keep going, David. Clemson, which is understandable, but there's another one. UCLA goes without saying, and this did not feel like that. Okay, that game felt like the end of a run. This did not feel like that because it didn't go the way that game went. I think Miami is going to be a better team than that UCLA. That was a horrifically bad defensive team, and they didn't look very good on offense either, and yet they still came back, and the way it happened. Man, I can keep going. There's a lot more. I don't want to waste time on radio, but when they go Notre Dame in the early 2000s, Utah, going out there with Fran and Reggie McNeil and Urban Meyer and Alex Smith. I mean, it is a long, long list, and there's not one. I don't think there's one that I'll go and say, oh, they went and won that one. Somebody text in and correct me. I'm sure maybe I've missed one, but if you go back, I'll go back to when I was in college and they went up to Norman, Oklahoma right after the news broke of the player suspensions and the Dallas Morning News article and all the Greg Hill stuff, and they went up there and got clubbed by Oklahoma, and that was when A&M wasn't losing football games. They got torched in Norman. So, I mean, road non-conference games have been high-profile ones, have been an abject disaster for A&M. I mean, they really have, and Saturday was no exception to that.
All right, let's hit a break. Talking Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. Elizabeth and I bought we bought a Tahoe. It was about a year and some change ago, and we called Caldwell Country and kind of went through the process. Like, this is what we're looking for. They found the right car for us, and we went back and forth, test drove the car, and we have it. We love it. It was a great experience for us. They're great people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. They're involved in the community. They support many clubs and charitable organizations, but really the most important thing that they do is great customer service and finding the vehicle for you at the right price, at the right price point, and also the right trade-in value. That's what they do there at Caldwell Country. It's a place that I know that you can trust. They just are really good dudes over there, good people that will get you the right situation for you and your family. About a 15-minute drive, Brian Caldwell, short conversation away. But you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with our good friends there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. They are on Highway 21 in Caldwell and online at CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. And we are back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Bill, I want to address something that I saw. I think you may have been involved in it. I think it was you. About the vibe over there and how that doesn't necessarily translate to a win versus Miami. Like, things can be better in many areas, and yet the football team cannot execute or not be put in positions to win games. But both can be true. You can have a much better vibe. People feel more accountable. There is more accountability across the street and still not win a football game.
You say that again?
What's your name? No, just saying that the vibe across the street can be better, and it doesn't necessarily mean you go to Miami and everything's fixed.
I'm not worried about people. People get upset. Oh, you told us the vibe was better. You told. That's become a big thing. You know, at some point, like, grow up a little bit. Like, when a team loses and you get mad, I promise you're not as mad as me. I'll happily, like, we can just, like, lock the door in here and get into a fist-to-face situation and see who's more pissed off when the Aggies lose. Like, right after a game, we can lock up and figure it out. I'm raging. And I probably, there's probably plenty out there that would just pummel me. But you're damn sure if I'm feeling the rage from that football game, I am going to put up one hell of a fight. Because I'm freaking pissed off, just like you are. Like, you guys walk around and think like you're the only ones mad, and we sit here just because we don't come in here and yell and scream. But it doesn't give you the right. It doesn't make it right. You have the right to say whatever you want. It doesn't make it right to pick something that upsets you that we said in a 9-month off season, and it doesn't make you right to make that like a lie or misleading or something to focus on. Is that the energy and vibe? You think that we just went out there and just said, hey, we should say the vibes are better. We should use that word. There's a better vibe. That'll be the catchphrase of 23. Get your ass out of here with that. Anyone who has any semblance of feel or insight into the program, whether it be Jimbo Fisher, Connor Wigman, Evan Stewart, Shamar Stewart, Walter Nolan, freshmen like Rubino, not a freshman because he wasn't here last year, but anyone, Damani, a fifth-year senior, any other coach, any other team insider I've talked to, athletic-wise people, former players that go to practice, donors that are out there, I don't give a damn. NFL scouts that have nothing to do with giving a damn whether A&M wins or loses. Okay? Every single person that came through, as recently as last week, when I said an NFL friend of mine went through there, they practice different. There's a different energy. The guys have said that on the football team. No one is feeding them to say that. That is real. You and I can see it when we go out there. Anyone that goes out there can see it. And what I said the entire offseason is we kept caveating that with, we'll see how if it translates into more wins, but it's a much better starting off point, and you'd much rather have the energy and the positivity and the optimism around the program that they had this offseason than the alternative. And if they are to bounce back from an early season loss, the only way to do it will be a team that truly felt that way. So if that weren't the case, I'd feel like they got no chance coming out of this. And look, if you were to tell me that DJ Durkin's not going to significantly change A&M's approach on defense and even the personnel, and this is not, first of all, I'll say defensively, it's Durkin's problem to fix. And, if they're lacking speed or whatever at any spot or edge, twitch, whatever it is, it's his job to fix it. And it was his job and Jimbo's job and the staff's job to have players on campus where it can be fixed. We're going to find out if that's the case. But whatever the reason, if they have any chance of fixing this, it's really, you can talk about DJ Durkin, you can talk about Petrino making continued adjustments. You can certainly, Steve Adazio he had better get that offensive line playing well this year. We said that throughout the whole offseason in year 2. And there were reasons to think they'd be better. And one game does not mean they're not. But Auburn, Arkansas, Bama, by that bye week, we're going to know. We're going to know in a couple weeks when Auburn comes in here. I want to look at that and compare it to Miami and see, okay, this is more the O-line we thought we'd see. But all of those things clearly have to happen. My point is none of them would happen if that team doesn't have everything that we saw, heard, noted, observed, talked to people about that other people, kind of, they didn't agree with it. They offered it up. People, that's how I work. I understand one thing, you can get people to agree with you if you want them to in life, whether it's business, whether it's what we do in the media, whether it's Jimbo as a coach or players that come in here. Some of them are slicker than others, and they can, have the gift of gab on a microphone, and you can get people to agree with you. That's not what's that hard. That's why I don't go out seeking that kind of validation. I like to get input and see what other people think without leading them down a path to answer something the way I want them to. So when I'm talking off the record and things like that, and people start offering the same stuff, and it's almost a consensus, it's almost unanimous, then you know it's true. Yeah. And when it matches up with what you've observed, then you know it's true. And you get it from a wide cross-section. So that thing that there's a couple people on Twitter, and I'm sure there's been some posts, you guys getting worked up about that, you're projecting your anger to the wrong place. You're projecting it the wrong way. Because everything we said about that stuff, we said, we'll have to see if it results in more wins, but it certainly makes you feel better about their chances to do it. It makes you feel like they were pissed off about how the season went. Hell, Jimbo said as much. You wanted to see how it translated on the field. And look, they're 0 for 1 in games that matter. They're 0 for 1. Scary part is they're going to play better teams in Miami. The good part is they got 9 chances. They've had 1 of them. There's 8 more in terms of real football games. Right. There's 8 more. So it's not a bad thing. When you lose the first one, the outlook should be we got 8 more shots. That's it. And can they do it? I don't know. There was enough Saturday to make you sit here and go, you don't know. But I also don't know that they're not. That's what I damn sure know, is that I'm not going to sit here and say they can't fix the issues. My biggest concern, David, number 1 on the list, is it's the defense would be a one-word answer, but it's also, to get it a little more focused, it's that secondary with that lack of pass rush, which were 2 of our biggest concerns. That is a bad combination. It's a rough combo. So I understand a little bit. I don't want to let Durkin off the hook too much, but I understand a little bit of what maybe his dilemma is, which is, do you dial up more pressure and when you know that there's a problem back there, or do you not? I know Elko had that issue early in his tenure here too.
Well, I do want to bring this up.
But you had Tyree Johnson and you had Matabike at the beginning, then you had Tyree Johnson. Those guys would get after the damn quarterback, and I don't know where that is right now.
We got to hit a break, but let me just say this out loud. I'm grasping at things right now.
Yeah.
We routinely talk about Durkin year 2 at Ole Miss being a success, right?
Yeah.
Let's not forget, the first part of that year 2 was not a success. They gave up 42 to Bama. They gave up 51 to Arkansas. They gave up 30 to Tennessee. So I guess my point is,
that didn't make me feel any better.
I'm not trying to make
that actually made, and I do remember that Arkansas game. That was the same day A&M
but they did
Bama.
Figure it out. I guess that's my point. It took. By the end of it, we're like, man, that defense is good. Remember?
No, but listen, I was really impressed with them early in that year when they played Louisville. At the very beginning of that year, I said, "Damn, Ole Miss."
They won 43 to 24. Yeah,
and they got after it, and they were flying around, and that's what I didn't see Saturday. And I know we got to take a break. What I didn't see Saturday was a confident defense. I didn't see guys that I didn't feel like everybody knew what they were, particularly the back seven, like knew what they were doing and flying around. And I do wonder how much of it, there's a lot. Look, I wasn't impressed. I'm very concerned. I was concerned entering the season. I wonder how much of that had to do, like, with Miami and Shannon Dawson's first real game as an OC and what they were going to do with Van Dyke. And that, they tested the run out a little bit, but they were really run heavy in game one. Dawson and Holgerson, were really run heavy a lot of years at West Virginia out of the spread. I just wonder how much Miami threw at them that they kind of weren't prepared for. I mean, look, it's the job to prepare, but it's also difficult. I thought Petrino was doing things to them offensively early on that was, that there were some wide open plays for the Aggies and things kind of came easy on a few snaps. I wonder how much of that factored in. It's not enough to make me not sit here and go, they got a big issue on defense. But it's his job to figure it out. And it's a job to figure out how to kind of split the difference there of trying to guard against a secondary that's, at putting it kindly, a work in progress versus, you don't necessarily want to sell out to get to the QB. And then maybe you look around and go, okay, if Malik Silla or Enoch White are only in there on third downs, is that doable? Does that help? Is that better than no pressure? I would have to think it would be.
We're 10 minutes late for a break. Let's talk Costa Vida right now. You come to our tailgates. Holly's here with the food. It's always good. And also game days. She's going to be all over campus. So just make sure you look for the Costa Vida sign because it is delicious food. And if you come to the TexAgs tailgate, get your grub on because the food is phenomenal out there. I'm going to give you a couple different options to do when you go to Costa Vida. You can go in the morning, right? You drive in for a game day. You come in the morning, get yourself some coffee, get yourself some breakfast tacos. Enjoy that. If you want to go for lunch, boom, they've got a different menu there. You got the quesadillas that's going to be there all day. They've got the tortilla soup. They got so many different options. Then, of course, you can go in the evening. But then if you're on campus, you come by the TexAgs tailgate, get your food on. It's just really good food done the right way. Costa Vida, very popular spot. And I'm telling you, you will be very pleased with all the great food that they have there. If it's for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and specialty drinks as well. Limonada. They got the seasonal agua fresca. You name it. Key lime pie for dessert. Tres leches, flan, cinnamon tortilla, Costa cookies, you name it. It is Costa Vida in South College Station, Aggie owned and operated, 4501 Mills Park Circle in College Station. Again, 4501 Mills Park Circle in College Station. It's Costa Vida. We can work it out. It's TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. All right, Billy.
David.
SEC.
Yes.
Very open. We knew it was going to be open.
Yep.
But maybe even way more open than we expected. Bama's got issues on the offensive line and at quarterback. LSU, I don't know how big their issues are or how good Florida State is, but there were some issues definitely exposed there.
Yeah.
Ole Miss, Mississippi State trucking along. Arkansas
trucking. Trucking along. They're not tested, though.
No.
Nice win for Mississippi State. Looks good to me. Ole Miss played Tulane without, Tulane gave them a run there. And I didn't even get to watch the game, but it shouldn't have been as close as it was, considering, Tulane's situation.
I think I went 0-6 or close to it on my
Yeah.
Big Six.
But I think the West is wide open. LSU, you learn nothing about against Grambling.
Right.
Arkansas, you learn nothing about. In 2 games, you've learned nothing. This division's wide open. If I'm watching football, a team that has my attention the most in the West as a potential surprise 2 weeks in, I'll actually go with Mississippi State.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You're not going to go with A&M, unfortunately, yet. You can't go Auburn. I'm not overly impressed with. 2 games in under Freeze. I think I'd say Mississippi State over any of the others right now. If you have to go to Starkville this year, and I don't know who does. Fortunately, the Aggies don't. But if you have to go to Starkville this year, that's going to be a hard victory to get for anybody in the SEC that has to go over there. But the division's wide open. Can Texas A&M make some noise there? Yeah, but here's what has to happen. The obvious is the defense and offensive line improvement and the defense in general. But more than that, David, it's going to be the team that wins the West, I think, is going to be 6-2, just like last year. And I think it's going to be a team that hits momentum early. You get off to a good start. You weather a loss or two. And then, you look up and like LSU, okay, we lost to 5-6. Like, you can do that this year. You can lose to 5-7 A&M like LSU did last year, but you beat Bama. You get smoked by Tennessee, but they're out of the East. You get smoked by a bad A&M team, but you beat Alabama. So you tied them at 6-2 and you won the tiebreak. I think you could see that again this season. I think to get there, you have to beat Bama, though, whoever does it. Texas A&M, if they get Auburn at home, that Arkansas game to me feels as big as it's ever been. As big as it's ever been. Which is crazy.
That tells you where we
are. As many times as you played them and as many times as you've beaten them. But I think it's as big as it's been because I do think they're going to figure crap out and get Auburn at home, whether it's close or I think it'll be close because I just don't think they're going to be. I think you get them. But to have any chance to beat Bama, which is a beatable Bama team, which they were last year too with Milroe, and A&M went out there with Haynes King and no momentum and no offense, and they still almost beat them. In order to get there, though, you better be really confident, and these fans better have a reason to come down to College Station and get to Kyle Field that day or night thinking that the Aggies can pull it off. And in order to do that, you have to be 2-0 in SEC play. If you're not, then that Bama game becomes that much tougher, that much more unlikely, and then followed up by a road trip to Tennessee, which I think, as I look at it today, looks to me like the worst matchup on your SEC schedule, considering it's in Knoxville, it's a week after Bama, and the way Tennessee plays offense, they're coming into a hungry fan base. They're coming into players that almost beat them last year, did beat them the year before. But I look at Arkansas, and you got to get through KJ Jefferson and the Hogs to get there, in my opinion. Circle that one. That, regardless of what happens, to me is going to be the biggest game of the biggest season that A&M's had under Jimbo. And maybe since they joined the SEC outside of 2013 when they could have maybe won a title had they had a defense, this season is so big because of what's coming. Texas, OU coming in. There's so much change afoot that we know what the Aggies have to do this year, and they're on the brink of not getting it done very early.
All right, we got to hit a break. We'll come back with one final segment of TexAgs. A little Charlie Robinson for you. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Saw the news yesterday, or is it this morning? I think I saw it.
Yesterday is when it came out. So that's a outstanding country music artist, without question.
Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. We've got about a minute and a half left in the show. Jared, what do you got for us, buddy?
We got a text from Tony in Lexington asking where was Le'Veon Moss.
Yeah, I mentioned that one earlier. He's banged up and wasn't available Saturday. I don't think it's not like a knee or some long term thing, but I guess you don't know with muscle stuff how quick or long they come back.
What else you got for us?
And then just Patrick just saying, I agree with you, Billy, about the Arkansas game, but don't you think the Auburn game is just as important? A loss to Auburn at home would be devastating and would lose all momentum.
Yeah, I think that goes without saying. I just think he's right, but I think, it would be a devastating setback to go 0-1 and used to lose to Hugh Freeze in his first year at Kyle Field. no way would that be in any way acceptable or understandable. But the reason I say Arkansas is I think A&M will handle business in that one. Again, however tough it may be, which I expect they're all going to be tough from here on out in the SEC. I think Kyle Field playing at home, back against the wall, kind of like that Miami game last year, kind of like that one. So, yeah, I just think the Arkansas one is the more difficult of the two. Therefore, I put that as the one that's more of a turning point to the season.
Thank you, Billy. Appreciate you.
All right, David.
All right. Thank you to DeMontre Moore. Thank you to Olin Buchanan. And, of course, Nick and Jared and the folks back at the mothership. Sean and Emmy, appreciate all your hard work. Tomorrow on the program, it's a typical Tuesday. We'll bring it to you. I don't have time to tell you, but the Jamie Morrison will be here, and Jamie McCoy, you name it. It's TexAgs Radio.